Welcome again to Pub Politics. Rick Garney here, along with Amanda Loveday on the Democratic side, in for Phil Bailey, Wes Donehue on the Republican side. Wes is usually here, so I have to get used to it. It's a different look. I might be thrown off the entire episode, so we'll try to soldier through here. Voter ID in the headlines again because it's getting down to cases, I guess, in Washington, D.C. The South Carolina law passed, however, it has not been implemented because the Justice Department shot it down. Now, the attorney representing South Carolina still wants it implemented by this election, November 6th. However, the judges have questions about it. They're wondering if South Carolina can wait until later on, 2014. So my question to you is, Wes, I know that you are in big favor of this voter ID law in South Carolina. Can it realistically be implemented by this election, November 6th, in your humble opinion?
In my humble opinion, I have absolutely no idea. It's not my level of expertise. All I can tell you is that the Democrats' tactic and the federal government's tactic this entire time has been just to delay, delay, delay. They've been trying to push this thing off as close to the election as possible. I'll tell you that I personally sat through 2 depositions. I was subpoenaed twice. My second deposition, they didn't ask me anything that they didn't ask me in the first one. All they were doing was just trying to delay and drag this out longer, subpoenaed thousands of emails from me and a lot of other people. All they want to do is delay this thing.
If we're trying to delay it, then the Republicans are trying to waste tax dollars and being in Washington, suing twice to get this implemented because they don't like what the Department of Justice is giving them the first time, the second time, and now they're waiting for a third time. The state of South Carolina Election Commission has said that it would take 90 days for this law to get implemented correctly, which we are outside that window for it to be ready for November 6th. I hope and believe that the Department of Justice will see through the politics of this bill and will not approve it. Final arguments were yesterday, so we should hear any day now at this point. But it's disenfranchising voters here in South Carolina.
But now Democrats, though, just to be clear, they don't want it. Judges were asking about whether it could be implemented for a future election. Democrats
we don't want it at all. Right. It's disenfranchising voters from every spectrum. It's asking for people to get IDs to vote, which is a constitutional right. Our governor keeps saying, well, you have to fly with an ID, you have to get medicine to get with an ID. Well, those aren't constitutional rights, and not everyone in this state flies or goes and buys medicine at CVS. So,
well, I mean, it's also a constitutional right for me to vote in my name. Right, and that's the problem we're having here is there is nothing secure in our elections. They like to talk about constitutional rights. There's also some things called states' rights. A lot of states have had their voter ID bills implemented. The federal department said nothing, but this federal Department of Justice has trounced on South Carolina's rights over and over and over. We saw it with Boeing. We saw it with the immigration bill. Now we're seeing it with voter ID. They like to talk about some constitutional rights while completely ignoring other parts of the Constitution.
But the problem with that is they have not given us one example of any type of anyone going and voting in someone else's name. There is no example of voters being hurt by this. And so Wesley has always voted in his own name. No one has gone and voted in his own name. And until they can give us examples on why this is necessary, because they have yet to do so, our Attorney General lies on national television and says 900 people voted dead, when the State Election Commission came out and said that is just not true. So maybe they should start telling the truth, stop wasting our tax dollars, and maybe move on to something that actually matters in South Carolina.
But it has become a big election issue, not just in South Carolina, but in several other states as well.
Yeah, it's become a national issue, but that's crazy. When you look at South Carolina's numbers, the ratio of white to black without and with IDs is almost equal. I mean, it's only like 0.5% difference.
But you're trying to say that only black people vote for Democrat. That's not true. Some of those white people are going to vote Democratic too.
Well, that's fine. Y'all are the ones making the case that it's our voters, the African Americans, that are being disenfranchised, and you're making my point exactly. It's not disenfranchising any particular race or any particular party. It is simply saying we need to secure our elections. That's it.
But what it's also saying is that there are over 200,000 people in the state of South Carolina who would not be able to vote on November 6th if this law is implemented. There is no way, shape, or form that those people will be able to get the required identification. They can't even use a school ID. So if they're a student at the University of South Carolina and the photo ID they have is the one given to them by the university, which is a state agency, they can't use that to vote.
Why would they be able to? I mean, if they live in North Carolina with a North Carolina driver's license, but they come to the University of South Carolina, then they, according to that rule, you could be able to vote in 2 different states.
No, they're not registered. If they are registered to vote in the state of South Carolina and the only ID they have is a school ID, why shouldn't they be able to use that?
Because you could also be registered in the state of North Carolina. You need to have a state issued ID.
How is a University of South Carolina student ID not state issued if it's a state agency?
Well, that's saying then that the janitor at the state house, because he has a state house ID, could use that to go vote. There are way too many. There are hundreds of different kinds of IDs, and there's no way for the state to regulate
that janitor to go to the DMV,
Absolutely.
pay $25 to get an ID, and
Absolutely.
So are you going to take them there and pay the $25?
Well, first off, the $25 gets reimbursed. That's waived. The state's already going to pay for that. As far as getting them there, that's not that big of an impediment. It's not an impediment at all. Anybody can get to the DMV.
How can you say that? You have no idea. People don't have cars. People need money to go on public transportation.
Listen, everybody knows if you need to go to the grocery store, there's a way to get anywhere in the state of South Carolina. It is not an impediment to get to the DMV to get a license or an ID.
Go to the rural areas of South Carolina and then tell me that.
I've been there. Grew up in those areas.
We're going to put Wes's cell phone number up on the screen, so if you need a ride.
Well, Nikki Haley's already offered to do that, so call her office.
But pubpoliticslive.com is the website. You can see these guys in person or check them out online as well. Wes, as always, thank you. Amanda, thanks for coming by.
Thank you for having me.
All right, back to you.